Hi students, a warm welcome to botany class. Let's begin from the first chapter, diversity of living world. The topic is diversity of living world. What are the learning objectives? Living things and non-living things. As you know very well, the differences between living things and non-living things, attributes of living organisms and levels of organization. So, you are going to concentrate attributes of living organisms and levels of organization. So, first question you are going to learn is biosphere. Define biosphere. Earth was formed before 4.6 billion years. 4.6 billion years ago, Earth was formed. We all know very well, the Earth is the only planet which supports life. So, the life is supported in this planet Earth. So, life exists in this Earth in a complex structure is called as biosphere. So, life exists within a complex structure. So, Earth which consists of a complex structure, there is a interaction between or mingling with living as well as non-living organisms, non-living things, living as well as non-living things. So, this is biosphere. So, life exists within a complex structure called biosphere. So, what is the definition of biosphere? Life exists within a complex structure is called as biosphere. So, in this biosphere, there are number of living organisms and non-living things. So, this number of living organisms which shows responses towards the non-living things. For example, there are so many examples because this Earth which consists of lot of wonders and mysteries. There are certain organisms which respond towards the stimulus. For example, the light, the response of sunflower towards the light, the twinkling of firefly in the dark forest, the rolling of water on the surface of lotus leaf. So, these all are examples of this organisms. Then DNA. DNA which is responsible for the regulation of the living organisms. DNA which is responsible for the regulation of living organisms, which is made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen and phosphorus. What are the attributes of living organisms? There are number of living organisms from unicellular to multicellular. The attributes of living organisms which shows movement, nutrition, growth, metabolism, respiration, irritability, excretion as well as reproduction. So, today you are going to concentrate attributes of living organisms. There are number of attributes in the living organisms. What are they? The living organisms which shows metabolism, growth, nutrition, movement, reproduction, excretion, irritability as well as respiration. Let us see one by one. Growth. First of all, growth. Growth is two different types. It is intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic growth and extrinsic growth. What is this intrinsic growth? The living organisms which shows intrinsic growth, because the unicellular to multicellular organisms which divides, the cell which divides and it increases in number as well as mass. Such type of development or growth is known as intrinsic growth. But the non-living things, in the earth there are some mysteries and wonders. So the land which shows different forms like mountains, plateau, glaciers. So these all non-living organisms, non-living things which grow by extrinsic. What's this? By addition of materials. For example, this mountains, rocks, the rocks or the sand. This all by addition of materials it grow in size. That type of growth is known as extrinsic. So there are two different types of growth, intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic which shows in living organisms, extrinsic growth which shows in non-living things. So it shows in animals and plants the growth is differ. Growth of animal and plant. In plants, the plants grow and grow. It's unlimited. The plants which grow indefinitely. Till its lifespan it grows. But in animals it's not like that. There is a limitation to the growth of animals. So animals and plants, it shows variations in their growth and development. So growth is one of the very, very important process of living organisms. Either plant or animals, growth is essential. Then second attribute, let's see about the reproduction. Reproduction, before that in growth also there are unicellular and multicellular organisms. So unicellular, which is again classified, there are number of organization, levels of organization you may study in the lower classes. There are so many categories the living organisms can be classified. So one among the classification is prokaryote and eukaryote. Prokaryote and eukaryote. This prokaryote and eukaryote shows differences. What are the differences? The prokaryotic organisms which consist of, which possess this, there is no well-defined nucleus and the cell organelles are absent in prokaryote. For example, bacteria. In bacteria, there is well-developed nucleus is absent. We can say that nucleus is nucleoid. So in the structure of in the bacteria, there is a nuclear material. This is known as nucleoid, or it's known as incipient nucleus. So it's not membrane bound. What's meant by membrane bound nucleus? In eukaryote, which shows membrane bound nucleus, which consists of nuclear membrane, nucleus which consists of nuclear membrane. This membrane is absent in this nucleoid. So it shows prokaryote, prokaryotic nucleoid, incipient nucleus. There is no membrane bound structure, and cell organelles are also absent in prokaryote. So mainly it's differentiated into nucleus as well as the cell organelles. What are the cell organelles? Mitochondria, chloroplast, endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes. These all cell organelles, Golgi bodies, all these organelles are absent in prokaryotic. Eukaryote, there is a well-defined nucleus and inside there are number of cell organelles. The cell organelles, mitochondria, all the cell organelles are present in this. This is seen in eukaryotic organisms. The mitochondria, chloroplast, then all the cell organelles are present within this. Here endoplasmic reticulum, this nuclear membrane which is followed by endoplasmic reticulum, which again consists of ribosome. Here is mitochondria, then in the plant cell there is chloroplast, Golgi bodies. These all organelles are present in eukaryotic organism. So, there is a difference between prokaryote and eukaryote. Now, reproduction. Reproduction is very essential feature of living organism. It's one of the essential feature of living organism in which the living organism perpetuate its species. It can be continuously give its species. So, it perpetuates. It's the very important process of living organisms. There are two different types of reproduction. It shows asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. In asexual method, there are number of methods which produce the species. For example, in asexual method, there are certain examples: fragmentation, budding, regeneration, conidia formation, conidia formation. These all methods are comes under asexual methods. Fragmentation. What's the example? Fragmentation. There is an alga called Spirogyra, which is a filamentous alga. This alga which divides by several bits. Fragment is a small bit. So, this body can divide into number of bits. It can detach from the parent one. Each bit or the fragment are able to develop into a new species. So, this type of reproduction is called as fragmentation. Accidentally, when the plant body is fragmented or it is detached into pieces, each piece has the ability to develop into the entire species. Is called fragmentation. Example, Spirogyra. Budding. In yeast, there is an example, budding. Bud is produced. So, this bud detached from the parental body, and it develops into a new species, budding. And Hydra also it shows budding. Then regeneration. There is an example, planaria. Planaria, its body, it contains the head part, the body part as well as the tail part. If it is cut into 3 different species, 3 different pieces, each part, the head, the body part and the tail has the ability to develop into the entire organism. So, this type of reproduction is regeneration method. And conidia formation. Conidia in fungus, the example is penicillium. Here the conidia is formed. Conidiophore, the plant body, it is mycelium. So, from this thallus, there is a hypha which grows erect and it produces conidiophore. Here the conidia is formed. Conidia, formation of conidia. Example, this penicillium. So, these all examples are asexual method of reproduction. What are they? Fragmentation, budding, regeneration and production of conidia. So, these all methods with the example is important. Then in sexual method, it shows variation. The variation due to recombination. in sexual method of reproduction. So, higher plants reproduces by sexual method. Now, what are the other attributes? Movement. The plants or animals, that is the living organisms which can move place to place, but plants are fixed in a particular region, particular place, fixed firmly in a particular place. But the animals can move here and there to search its food. So, for searching its prey, the animals can move place to place. So, movement. But the plants shows certain movements. What are the movements? Some shoot system. It stimulates towards the sunlight. If the direct sunlight is not it is upon its shoot, because for photosynthesis sunlight, direct sunlight is essential. So, it bends its body, its shoot system, and it comes out towards the sunlight. So, bending nature, bending its branches or bending its body surfaces. That is movement, respond towards the stimulus. So many examples we can say for movement. In animals which can move here and there for search its food. Then irritability and excretion, nutrition, respiration, these all processes are necessary for this living organisms. Then what is meant by metabolism? Metabolism is the sum total of chemical reactions taking place within the body of the living organisms. There are number of chemical reactions taking place within the body of the living organisms. So, this sum total is called metabolism, which is classified into two different types. They are anabolism and catabolism. Anabolism and catabolism. What's the difference among these two? Anabolism is the build-up process. Catabolism is the breakdown process. So, there are number of chemical reactions that's known as metabolism. So, metabolism, three different definitions are there. Metabolism, anabolism, catabolism. Metabolism is the sum total of chemical reactions within the organism. Anabolism is the build-up process. Catabolism is the breakdown process. How it builds up? For example, the protein synthesis. The amino acids form together and produces as a protein. Anabolism, build-up process. The smaller units are combined together and forms as a complex structure. But catabolism, the complex structures are breaking down into smaller substances. For example, glucose. When it breaks down, it gives energy and it releases carbon dioxide. So, likewise. This is the example of anabolism and catabolism. So, today you are going to learn the differences between anabolism and catabolism. Then another question is levels of organization in integration in living organisms. There is integration of living organism. Without the integration of living and non-living, it's not isolate. There will not be isolation. There will be an integration. At first, atoms. From the atoms, the molecules and compounds are formed. From the molecules, it forms as the organelles. From the organelles, living cells are developed. Then from living cells, the cell is the structural and functional unit of living organism. From the cell, there are number of cells grouped together and forms as a tissue, and the tissues are organized together and forms as the organ, then organ system, then it produces the individual species. Each individual it grouped together and forms as a population, and each population it forms as the community, and the community which forms as the ecosystem, and finally the ecosystem is present in the biosphere. So, at first you learn what is meant by biosphere. The life exists within a complex structure called biosphere. So here the biosphere, which is a complex structure which consists of atom, molecules, organelles, living cells, tissues, organs, organ system, individual, population, community, ecosystem, these all together in a complex structure called biosphere. So there is an estimation, and what are the non-living things present here in the molecules, which is colloids, crystals as well as the mixtures. Then in the earth, which consists of some million of species, according to Mora et al. In the year 2011, he estimated, Mora et al. Estimated in the year 2011, there are 8.7 million species on the earth. So let's conclude today's class within this levels of organization and integration in living organisms. Let's review what you learned today. First, you learned the definition biosphere, then attributes of living organisms and levels of organization and integration in living organism. So draw this in the book. These two flowcharts are given. Write it in the class note and learn these two questions and all the definitions before the next class. Thank you.